And we are live. Hello to Michael, who is already in the chat. I hope you're doing good tonight.
Hello, Michael.
And let's see, I'll just go ahead and start the actual recording of the podcast. All right. Welcome to Force of Light Entertainment, where we keep things on the light side. I'm your host, Michelle, and with me is my co host, my sister, Natalie.
Hello, everybody.
This is episode 39. If you have not yet, we encourage you to please subscribe to the podcast, give us a lovely 5-star review, and write a nice little description of why you like listening to us.
As detailed as you want to get.
Yes, that would be awesome. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like the video. Give it a thumbs up. Well, this past Wednesday, we had Alberto of Radio Rebellion on, and he was an awesome guest. And we had an incredible discussion about Ray. And if you've not checked that out, we encourage you to go ahead and check out that episode. Also, Natalie and I both had a discussion on Bob's adventures and blogs. So check out his channel and watch our discussion with him.
Thanks for having us, Bob.
Yes. And tonight we have two more awesome special guests. We have Ro and Brad from the Scarif Podcast. Ro and Brad, how are you all doing tonight?
Great.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Good to hear.
Yes, glad to have you guys. And you guys had us on your show a while back, and we immediately thought, well, we'll have them on ours. And I kept thinking, what would be something good to discuss with them? And as we were watching this series, I was like, you know what? I bet they both really enjoy this. And we reached out and made it happen. So first, before we get into what we are discussing tonight, I was going to say, let you guys tell our audience a little bit about yourself, and also Ro about the Red 5 Network, which you are the founder of and we are a part of and glad to be a part of. So you guys take the floor.
Brad, go ahead and do your little scuttlebutt tease there.
Oh yeah, so we have this little show we like to call the Scarif Scuttlebutt, where it's always sunny on Scarif. Just like you guys, we like to keep things on the light side, but we're not afraid to do some deep dives into some more serious topics about the Star Wars saga. We'll do the lighter episodes, the deeper episodes. But whatever we're talking about, we just like to keep it fun, but keep it honest at the same time, and have some frank and candid discussions. And we've been around for over a year now, a little over a year now. We can start rounding up to a year and a half here pretty soon. We started the last Star Wars celebration in Chicago, and it's picked up steam. And it's what led to the Red 5 Network. And there's your segue, Ro.
Well, and
Excellent.
I want to say before Ro goes, you guys do have, if any of our listeners don't listen to you guys, I highly recommend checking them out, because they do. I get what you mean, what we mean by the light side, just more positive, upbeat, fun about it. But you guys have some excellent, interesting takes and deep dives into unique conversations on your channel. So definitely check them out if you haven't. But Ro, go ahead and tell us about Red 5.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. From time to time, we do a little bit of breaking news and Star Wars talk, but we are really gung-ho when we talk about certain aspects of the franchise that we love. We love talking, just really picking apart, character motivations and things like that. A little bit, it's a little different than just kind of, reading breaking news and talking about stuff, but having a lot of fun. And one of the things that we love is interacting with a lot of podcasters, a lot of Star Wars podcasters, a lot of kind of geek culture podcasts. So that's really where the Red 5 Network was born. And, I got together with a couple of other podcasters and tried to see how many people would really be interested in kind of joining this group. And, pleasantly surprised, we have quite a number between Red Squadron and Gold Squadron. And, just a group of content creators that are having fun, that are honest about talking about this franchise, and keeping it light. But like Brad said, being honest with what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like, and why you don't like it. We like to really, dive deep into those aspects of the franchise, and keep it respectful, because I think when Brad and I started the podcast over a year ago, we saw a lot of back and forth with fans. We're all about discussion, but we're not about insulting each other. So if we can kind of set an example of discussing aspects of the franchise in a civil manner, we coined the enjoy Star Wars responsibly. And I think that's kind of how we started the podcast, and what we extended that philosophy, I guess, to the Red 5 network. So I'm glad you guys are on board with us. We have quite a few member podcasts, and everybody, you guys got to check it out, because there's a little bit for everybody over at the red5network.com.
Yeah, no, the Red 5, you asked us to be a part of it, and we were thrilled when you asked us to be a part of it, because it is a tremendous thing that you put together of just so much. There's so much support in the Red 5, and there are so many different, truly, everyone's different in the Red 5, but yet they're all excellent podcasts that have different flavors. It's just a very unique group that we put together, but yet also flow together too at the same time. So we really appreciate everything you've done, Ro, with the Red 5 and all your hard work in it.
Yeah, there is no I in team, and I just, Brad and I love being the spearheading this movement, and we're just having fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I enjoy it. Well, we will let the fun continue tonight, and we will be discussing the Indiana Jones trilogy or series, whichever you want to call it at this point. So join the conversation, and let's talk some Indiana Jones. All right. Anything you guys want to say? Because Indiana Jones is quite an incredible collaboration with two incredible creators, being George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. And that's pretty awesome, just right out the get-go, that you have the both of them making this trilogy together.
I get goosebumps when George Lucas. I'm kind of a student of how he started his career, between him and another powerhouse, if you know the name, Francis Ford Coppola. Obviously, they started American Zoetrope together, and the collaborations kept on going. George and Steven have been working together for a really long time with Indiana Jones, and it's another one of those franchises for George that's very personal for him, and can't wait to really get into that.
Yeah, just really, incredible talent that worked on these movies. So we'll kind of start, and I will say, how much I know the answer of Ro, but I'll let him tell the audience. So how much, we all know that Star Wars is our beloved trilogy. I know you guys too. Obviously, you started a Star Wars podcast, but how much do you enjoy Indiana Jones? What has it meant to you growing up? That type of thing.
Brad, you want to do that one first?
Yeah, sure. As far as movie series goes, it's obviously, like you said, Star Wars is always going to take that top spot. I don't think anything's ever going to usurp that spot as far as my personal listings go. But Indiana Jones, it's one of those timeless, and we'll talk about the timelessness of it, I'm sure, on probably multiple occasions tonight. But it's one of those, if it's on TV, you have to watch it. I don't care which episode it is. If you're flipping through and you come, Indiana Jones and whatever, you're going to stop and watch that. Just like I would stop and watch a Star Wars marathon, even though I've seen it 300 times. I'm going to stop and do the same thing for Indiana Jones. So that just goes to show, how timeless that series is, and just how fun it is. We were talking about George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. When you put the mind and imagination of George Lucas together with the sheer and utter talent of Steven Spielberg, and of course, then you got the acting ability of Harrison Ford and everybody else that worked on the project. I mean, that's what you're going to get out of it. You're going to get magic out of it every single time. And I think we saw that with each one. Yeah, we're going to talk about rankings, I'm sure, but it doesn't matter which one you watch. They it's not like Star Wars where you might have some might be hit or miss for you. I think they're all fun to watch no matter what you have. Even Crystal Skull. We're going to focus more on the trilogy, but even Crystal Skull is a fun movie in its own right. So that's what makes it a little bit different than Star Wars, and they're all fun and enjoyable in their own way.
Yeah, totally. Ro, anything you have to say on that?
No, Indiana Jones, we talk about the hero's journey with Star Wars all the time and how Luke Skywalker has this call to adventure, but there's probably no better example of that besides Star Wars, obviously, than Indiana Jones. He's an archaeologist, he's a teacher, an instructor, and he has all these great adventures. And like Brad said, they're just all fun to watch. I watched Crystal Skull just the other night, and I'm like, you know what? It's not as bad as as the ether kind of put so much crap on it. But I can do with less digital prairie dogs. But for the most part, like Brad was saying, each film has its own little charm, and I'll pop any of them in and just sit there and watch it. Like Brad said, even though we've seen it hundreds of times, but it's those kinds of movies.
Yeah, and these were the type of movies I would say in our house. You had Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and the Rocky trilogy, or not trilogy, saga, whatever you want to call that. You had all those movies, these different series playing at our house. So Indiana Jones is probably like kind of second behind Star Wars.
And of course, Ace Ventura.
Oh, I was talking. Okay, yeah, yeah. We had a lot of comedy too.
Yeah.
But I'm saying as far as like series of movies. And so we grew up watching Indiana Jones. It was on our house all the time. Loved it. And I remember again, like you guys are saying, the Crystal Skull. I remember seeing that in theaters and was so excited and had so much fun watching it in theaters that opening weekend. So yeah, I know it to me it's the worst of the four, but it still is a fun movie, and it was so much fun at that point to get to see Harrison back in that role. So yeah, I love this trilogy, and Natalie and I, what started us thinking, hey, we should do this. Our theater has been open, and of course they're just having to play old movies. So I have now been able to see all of the Indiana Jones in theaters because I've been able to go back and watch all of the original three in theaters. So that's been a fun experience this summer. So yeah, Indiana Jones is a pretty dear to my heart as far as a trilogy.
And you guys, sorry about the interruption. The podcaster or people listening on podcast probably didn't notice, but
yeah, they didn't notice. People watching.
For you guys watching, yeah, I was gone. My daughter needed me, so if there's ever an emergency, you gotta step out. As much as I hate to,
you do. But anyways, we'll kind of move into. So, what do you guys think makes, because Indiana Jones as a character is very iconic at this point. I mean, the hat, the whip, everything about him is iconic. What do you think makes Indiana Jones such an iconic character?
I think Brad said it a couple minutes ago. I mean, it's the combination of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford. Harrison obviously is a fantastic actor. I love seeing him in the original trilogy. I love his ability in The Empire Strikes Back, his acting ability in The Empire Strikes Back, and it's probably one of the things that makes it a favorite of mine. And actually, sometimes I miss that so much. Obviously, the original gang they're not too much in the sequel trilogy. So sometimes, besides going back and watching the original trilogy for the old gang, I was watching some Jack Ryan, Harrison Ford movies, Patriot games and stuff like that, just to see Harrison Ford back in his prime, so to speak. But yeah, that combination, the George Lucas, Spielberg, Harrison Ford. I mean, that's the trifecta of adventure. I would say.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
I totally agree. Brad, anything you were going to say on that?
Yeah, it's like, how do you make an archaeologist interesting? Like that's a
Yeah,
weird place to
yeah.
start. This guy's like Rose said. I mean, he's an archaeologist and he's a professor. Most. I mean, yeah, you do have your interesting college professors that are engaging, but many of them are pretty bland for the most and especially one that's teaching in archaeology, stuff that's been dead and buried for hundreds or thousands of years. How do you make that character interesting? Well, you just take Harrison Ford and you let him be himself, and he's got chemistry with anybody else that's on the screen one way or another. Whether he's fighting Nazis or obviously the female lead characters, you can see the obvious chemistry there. So just let Harrison be himself, with that signature smirk of his, and it's going to work, and it's just pure brilliance that you can make an archaeologist. I mean, he's obviously not a conventional archaeologist, so to speak, but to be able to make that sort of character interesting is amazing.
Well, I was gonna say we actually have a an uncle that was an archaeologist, and I actually did find that interesting. Like when I was younger, just because I love like old stuff and finding things from the past. But then I kind of really thought about it as a career. Not that I really considered it, but it's like in reality, they spend a lot of time like digging, and it's probably pretty boring. Um, but yeah, so like you said, they did make Indiana Jones. They took something that could be interesting, but on steroids. They made
Well,
it so interesting. It's like making an adventure out of it. An archaeologist with a twist.
basically, what she's saying is Harrison Ford is so good in this role, she contemplated, do I want to be that when I grow up?
I think I realized it probably wouldn't be like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Harrison, I mean, I think both of you nailed it. George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and Harrison Ford just created an iconic character that I don't think any actor could have done the way Harrison did. Because, like Rose said, Harrison in his prime, like he creates this character in Indiana Jones that it's kind of like the women want to date him and the men want to be him. Like that's how cool this guy is.
That's interesting. I was thinking of kind of like James Bond parallels, but it's like I personally like Indiana Jones, the franchise, way better than the Bond. I know Michelle loves James Bond, but I'm much more like Indiana Jones.
Well, because I think Harrison, it's a little less cheesy than some of the old Bonds, but just because of Harrison can deliver. You could give Harrison a cheesy line, and he's going to deliver it in a way that it's not as cheesy as no one else could have delivered it as smooth as Harrison.
It's a talent he has for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this character, and I love what Harrison brings. As I thought about what Ro was saying, he brings to it. It's like, say, the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. This character seems so awesome, but yet because of Harrison's face acting, when the people are chasing him and he's genuinely freaked out, there's a relatableness to him there. He's not just this, oh, well, this character's always going to get out of the situation.
I've got it all the time.
Yes, it's like he's very confident and very intelligent, but yet realistic. He brought a realisticness to this character, and I think that always helps people relate and connect to a character. So I think, yeah.
And I'll just say there's a lot more depth to Indiana Jones, to Dr. Jones, as Mr. Rez said in your chat. There's a lot more depth to Dr. Jones than there is to Han Solo. I mean, obviously, Han Solo was not the lead. He's one of the leads in Star Wars. Wasn't the lead. Obviously, Indiana Jones is the lead, so he's going to get more depth. But there is a lot more depth to Indiana Jones than there was to Han Solo.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
There's definitely a connection between, I've heard George Lucas, or I've read interviews with George Lucas saying that, the Indiana Jones is his James Bond. And when it came time to cast Indy's father, who else are you going to get but James Bond?
Yeah, Sean Connery.
And
Yeah.
can I just say I love them together with
Yeah.
that. That's the one we watched, kind of watching it in the series most recently. We watched it just this past weekend, but I think even my daughter really enjoyed just their cute relationship back and forth. They kind of nailed that, their dynamic.
But it's like Brad said, Harrison, you can put anyone on the screen with Harrison and he instantly has chemistry with them.
True.
Like he has chemistry with every female character in these movies, with all the male characters. Like he
is the most interesting man in the world.
That commercial that really could be talking about Indiana Jones. Like
Right.
he truly is. Like he's done everything. He's seen everything.
He does have that essence.
He does. Like I said, I mean, he's a fascinating character.
But then he can take second stage to Sean Connery. Sean Connery actually does not have a huge role in that movie. He's got a little bit of screen time, but not a huge role in that movie. He's missing for the most part in that movie. But Harrison doesn't mind backing up and taking that number 2 spot to Sean Connery. And that's fun to see as well.
That's true. Compare that to say Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise likes to truly dominate the entire movie. And that's a really good point, that he can step back and let someone else kind of take over.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an amazing actor and this is an amazing character. So we'll kind of move into, and you guys, you're free to say anything at any point about anything you think of as far as this.
Total freedom of speech.
Yes, in this series. But I had down if we could give our rankings of this movie. So either one of you want to go? Do you know your rankings?
It's something that I've never thought of. I think I like them all a lot. Obviously, some more, but there's nothing that compares to the original Raiders of the Lost Ark.
See, I knew it.
Yeah, for me, it's the from the opening from the Paramount Pictures mountain and the dissolve between the logo of Paramount Pictures to the actual mountain in South America where he was at. The way they introduced Indiana Jones with that little shadow and he comes out of the shadows into the light. It's such a classically thought of film. Obviously, George Lucas taking a lot of homage to those old serials from Hollywood, those adventure films. The actors like Errol Flynn and Buster Crabbe and films like that. So Raiders to me, I guess it's tops. I think going out of order, I think for me it'll be 1 Raiders, and then Last Crusade, Temple of Doom, and Crystal Skull.
Yeah, that's good. Brad, you guys are always opposite in Star Wars. What about in this?
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Do you know that's where I kind of am, because growing up as a kid, it was always Last Crusade, because I just loved him and Sean Connery's dynamic and what they go after and kind of the true adventure of it. That was always my favorite growing up as a kid. But I will say this, it's become so hard just like as I got older and when we just saw it in theater, man, the Temple of Doom is so good. Like it's truly like neck and neck now for me with not Raiders of the Lost Ark, with the Last Crusade. And I never felt that way as a kid. In fact, I didn't watch it as much as a kid. But as I got older, like that movie, and I know it kind of gets some crap sometimes from people, but it is so much fun that it's hard for me to almost pick. It's like 3 and 2, and I can't decide. It almost depends on my mood that day of which one. And then Raiders would be 3rd, and then Skull would be 4th. Now, I think you're kind of the same as me.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like the 2 Med 2. Did I say it right that time?
2 Med 2.
2 Med 2.
She keeps making Michael the Me Too movement over
Michael.
there. Yeah, it's just Michael.
Michael, buddy. Okay, yes. I kind of have to 3, 2, 1. I kind of think that's me too.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably a more unpopular opinion, but we just saw that one last. The number 3. I'm not counting the skull one because I haven't seen that in so long I don't even remember it. But of the three originals, it's I watched it probably the most as a kid. Like I just, even though there's that creepy scene at the end where the guy like, I think we all know the
He
scene,
gets the
like
life sucked out
the
of
life
him.
is literally sucked out of him. It was kind of creepy. But it's like Michelle said, I love the second one so much too, and I like the first one a lot too. But yeah, probably the second and third are more fun to me for whatever reason. But
Yeah.
and
You
the
know,
second one, the woman's so funny,
Yeah. Oh gosh, hysterical.
and the little boy, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones, you cheat, Mr. Jones, Dr. Jones.
I love that kid.
Yeah, and it's funny because you don't realize when you look at the year, Temple of Doom is actually a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I'm like, well, where did Short Round go?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that until like recently, and it is. You're like, well, what happened to the kid?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably where I'd have to go. And it's kind of like you guys said, there's not a bad one in this trilogy.
No.
And even with the original three, it's very hard. It almost depends on your mood, but I probably do have to go 3, 2, 1. But like I said,
Really? So we're the same?
yeah, that's what I said before you said that.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
She wasn't listening, guys. She
I
just
didn't
she just
catch
admitted that she
I
wasn't
didn't
listening.
catch that. I am
And-
ADD. Okay.
But like I said, Temple of Doom is so much fun. Like that, I actually had the most fun watching that in theaters recently. It's just that movie's just great from start to end. There's no slow moments in Temple of Doom.
yeah, and
But
Temple
yeah,
of Doom.
they're all great.
Temple of Doom was one of those movies that had issues with rating challenges. The special
Yes.
effects. ILM was so good in burning that I guess that dummy or whatever that the censors said that this is too gruesome. You got to cover some of that up because the guy that got his heart taken out by well, what's his name and lowered in the pit in that cage. He was moving around and he was screaming and it was really horrific. And the censors are like, whoa, back that off a little bit. So ILM had to kind of create some digital or some additional, there was no digital at that time, but some additional flaming elements to cover a lot of the, like the gore and the suffering of the pneumatic dummy that they used for that. A lot of special effects too, during the same movie when they were on the drawbridge.
Yes.
And Indy takes out the sword and cuts the sword and everybody falls. They developed a new type of dummy that they placed on the bridge, and it was air powered. So as soon as they fell, the pumps inside the arm started doing this, so it looked like actual people were falling. So really good stuff visually. Again, ILM at the forefront of every project that they take on, and can't say it enough. A big credit to George Lucas and the creative team behind the scenes.
Yeah, I will have to say those gators at the bottom of the water were really eager to eat all the people that fell into the water.
They
They
were kind of
were
like the shark in Jaws. You know, it was personal, I think.
Right.
It was a little personal.
And Nerf Herder has a comment in the chat. It is one of the reasons that PG-13 came about because
Yes.
of the intensity of the action. So yes.
You know, and I was going to say when you were commenting on that, it does get actually. I'd kind of forgotten until I watched it a few weeks ago. The second one, it does get kind of intense. Like,
yeah.
I mean, there's definitely kind of a sense of evil. You know, just like devil worship or whatever's going on, and like you said, the heart being ripped out. And I guess you're saying there was more, and they kind of cut it back some, which was probably a smart idea.
The one thing that I find interesting is during the writing of that script, George Lucas was going through his divorce and he was in a dark place.
Interesting.
And it kind of spilled on to the script, the paper. He was going through some rough times with
just
his
ripped their heart out.
ex-wife, and I guess that was his therapy.
Well,
Right.
and it has the nastiest scenes because that dinner where they're eating the monkey brains,
Oh,
that
yeah.
the snake is cut open and all these like
She
little
loved monkey
snakes come
brains.
out. There's eyeballs, like it's all disgusting.
Well, there's snakes throughout, like
yeah.
all three movies, which is so funny. Michelle, I mean, it's a crazy like fear. That
It's
Michelle
a fear and a
has.
phobia. They disgust me.
I mean, I had a
Snakes?
fake
But-
snake one
but-
time, and she threw a candle at me.
But that's why I think it is a great scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark when he pumps all the gasoline and just lights them on fire. I cheer for it every time.
That's funny. So during that scene, they didn't have enough snakes. They went to every pet store in northern England, but once they got all the snakes in there, the Wranglers, there weren't enough. So what they did is they cut up rubber hoses and they threw them, randomly just to kind of make them look like there's more snakes. Karen Allen had an issue with snakes, so Spielberg asked one of the snake wranglers if he wouldn't mind shaving his legs and wearing the white dress to get shots of Marion kind of flipping out at the snakes. And when you see those lower shots of the legs and the snakes kind of like being kicked off, it's not Marion, it's the stunt guy.
That would have been me.
I was thinking that would be you, Michelle.
That totally would have been me.
Yeah, that guy's
Um,
name was Steve Edge. He was one of the snake handlers during that film.
He was the real MVP of that
Yeah.
movie.
I'm guessing his lower legs must have been
Pretty feminine.
pretty shapely.
I guess.
Well, now that we've talked that, how about we move into any favorite scenes? Any scenes that stand out? I have a feeling we all may have one of the same ones, but any scene that stands out in these movies or scenes that you absolutely love when you think of these movies?
Like one from each or just in general?
Well, if you have one for each, go for it. But
Yeah,
any
that's-
scene or scenes.
That's hard. Because it's.
Do you want?
there's a
I
lot
can
of-
go while you guys think if you want.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where there's so many good scenes in all of the movies, and that's not like blowing smoke or anything. There are just so many good scenes throughout all that. And you sent me the notes ahead of time, and I'm still thinking about it from when you sent the show notes over. But yeah, we'll let you go for it first, and while we try to think.
I can give you one. Okay, one of the most iconic that I would say that is my favorite, just a fast little scene, is in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where the guy, the guy whips out his sword and is doing the sword, and Harrison or Indiana just is like, and just pulls out a gun, boom, blows the guy away.
That was hilarious.
It's hysterical. It's so Harrison Ford. And I'm pretty sure you guys can correct me. I've read that Harrison was just like tired that day
Yeah.
and just kind of
It
did
was
that
his
just
idea.
to end filming.
Yep, it was his idea. I mean, he did that, and he did the "I love you" line in The Empire Strikes Back. I
Yes.
know. So, yeah, he's pretty cool.
The man knows how to improvise.
Yeah.
He does, and like improvise in a way that's iconic
Yeah.
that becomes memorable. So
Totally.
that scene, and then I've always loved. Let's see, it's like you guys said. There's so many movies. I mean, so many scenes I love in all these movies. I'm just trying to think of ones I totally love. I love in The Last Crusade, where it's my favorite part of him discovering something when he's in the library and he's figuring out what his dad has left him, and he's
You
finding
just
out
took
all
mine.
the. Did I? I don't know what about that scene, but it's like magical in that moment. Like as he finds the Roman numerals and he's finding the numbers and he's going through the library. There's ever since I was a kid, I've loved that scene. I don't really know why. So maybe Brad, you can explain what is it about that scene that's so great.
Well, what I did notice the last time I saw that, and I don't know if you guys, there's an editing issue in that scene as well. I think it's because he finds the Roman numerals, right? And it's
Yes.
I think it's the 5. It's there, and then the next time you see it, it's not there anymore. The 5 is gone. So there's an editing issue in that scene. But I don't know, it's just like seeing the way that Indy's mind works, and then seeing that there's a connect. Even though he's got all this animosity between himself and his father, how he raised them or didn't raise them, so to speak, very well. But in the end, their minds work very similar to each other, and he's kind of able to talk to his father from far away, from hundreds of miles away, and just put it all together. But in that same movie, I love that scene. I love the castle scene where he goes to rescue his father, and then of course the trials at the end of that movie, and taking there's so much symbolism in the end of
Yeah.
that movie, and taking the leap of faith and all that kind of good stuff at the end. You know, I I think most of my favorite scenes come from The Last Crusade, except for obviously the iconic one you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, there's something too. You brought up a good one. As he goes through those trials, at times it's like chilling, like it really is, like in a good way. That's an incredible scene. That whole segment. But yeah, Ro, what about you? If you had time to think of any.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's little moments. It's because I'm a visual guy. I love certain shots. Indiana Jones coming out of the shadow into the light to introduce his character. Stuff like that is just amazing for me. For Temple of Doom, I mean, there again the fight between the big guy, the big Nazi, when he's trying to get that airplane. But one of my favorite shots, or one of my favorite stunt sequences, is when when he's dragged under that truck, and
Oh yes, yes.
it's perfectly timed. And I think I got to go back and watch it when Luke Skywalker first tries to destroy the Death Star. There's that sequence where there's like no music, and the sound effects are going, and the X-wing is going, and the scene is playing up. But then that second go in Star Wars, after he tries the first time and it doesn't work, and he goes at it again, there's a music cue that starts escalating. Just if you thought the excitement wasn't up here already, it escalates even more. And it does the same thing in Raiders. You got that scene where he's trying to get that Nazi out of the driver's seat, and he falls in front of the truck, and he gets dragged. It's the same thing. There's no music. There's just sound effects. You hear the truck, and then all of a sudden, when we think that he fell over and got trampled, you hear that music, that Indiana Jones march, and it's moments like that that's very, it's very George Lucas. It's very, the way that he tells the story, and obviously, Spielberg directed it, but they're friends. They work together, and it's really cool. Again, there's just so many. But one of the things that I love about Crystal Skull too, even is the reintroduction of Marion Ravenwood.
Yes.
It's You can tell Karen Allen was having such an amazing time, because I read a few articles regarding, like every other year, Spielberg would call Karen and said, "I think we're going to do another Indiana Jones. I think we're going to do," and it never happened. It just never happened. And one day, obviously he calls her up and says, "I think this is it. I think we're going to do it." And Karen Allen's like, "I'll believe it when I'm on set." And just the sheer joy that she exudes in every scene that she's in with Harrison is palpable. It's enjoyable to watch. Yeah, and again, 4 might not be everybody's favorite, but that's one of the things that I enjoy a lot, is just seeing her enjoying being back in the character, and I love that.
Yes. Yeah, it was awesome to see all of them back. Yeah, and it's always so nice when you can tell that the actor truly is excited about the project they're in. Like it just comes across. So I
Definitely.
agree. So we can move on
You
to
didn't ask me.
oh, okay. Natalie, favorite scene.
I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to.
Go for it, Natalie.
No, I mean,
I feel like we've named them all.
yeah, like you guys said, it's hard to say. Like one thing I was thinking of, just because I watched it recently, that I thought was kind of a cool, tie into history, was that kind of intense moment that they're burning books, and he's got that very important journal of his father's, and he comes face to face with Hitler.
Yeah.
You know, you can tell he's just like sweating bullets. And then like Hitler just kind of coldly takes the bull and takes the journal and signs his autograph and hands it back to him. You know, he's like,
Yeah.
you know, so that was kind of a fun moment. And, you know, I'm kind of a relationship person. I love relationships. I love the healing that takes place between he and his father in the third one. Because like, I think it was Brad had mentioned, like maybe they didn't have the best relationship. And I think Indy maybe didn't feel the most loved or cared for by his father. And his father is kind of aloof and into his own thing. And by the end of it, through what the adventure they go to together, they realize like they really do love each other. And so that's precious. And then in the second one, I can't, you know, once again, I just love that kid. And I love you, Dr. Jones. You know, like
That is like the most touching
like,
moment.
it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so sweet.
When he says, Dr. Jones, I love you.
It's like, I don't know who that doesn't make their heart melt, you know? So yeah, those are some of my, and what you guys said. I mean, there's just so much good in them.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many good scenes in these movies. And so moving on, we can move on to, do you guys have a favorite artifact that Indiana finds in any of these 4 movies?
Favorite artifact. Let's see.
I mean, well, you know, what's cool about I mean, they're all, I mean, every single artifact he finds is pretty awesome with all, you know, so much historical significance. But you know, you know, what I like about the Holy Grail, you know, going to that one is, you know, obviously the bad guy wants to pick the fanciest you know, cup that he can find in that room, because you know, obviously, you know, Jesus would have used this fancy thing, and of course he chose unwisely on that one. You know, got what was coming to him. But you know, it was how basic and, you know, humble that one was, you know, and that he was able to put that together. So you know, that definitely. And you know, Nat mentioned the book burning and the Nazis, and one of the things I love about the movie is how much drawn from history, just like George, you know, Star Wars, even though it's a galaxy far, far away, most of the stories that he told, you know, took place in, you know, in our history, you know, rise and falls of empires and stuff like that, and republics. You know, the Nazi party, they were so, there was a part of them that was so obsessed with the occult and mysticism. It wasn't the entire Nazi party, but it was a certain, you know, clique within the Nazi party, you know, from when they started right after World War II, with the Thule Society was the name of it. You know, they were interested in the occult. We saw this at the beginning, you know, of, you know, Captain America, the first Avenger. You know, they talk about there and Red Skull and stuff like that, you know, with the Nazis and the occult. But they were highly interested in these, and Hitler actually thought, you know, it really his power went to his head. He thought he was there, and we've talked about this sort of theme on Scarif. He thought he was there by divine right, and there was about, you know, I think it's like 8 to 10 assassination attempts on Hitler, and of course they all failed. And so every time that there was an assassination attempt and it failed, that was more and more proof to him that he was there by divine right. So it's very dangerous, you know, when you start thinking that some higher power has put you in this place of power. But, you know, they were able to take that, you know, those occult themes and that mysticism and, you know, put it into an entertaining light. And, but, you know, those book burning scenes, they still have significance today. You know, we don't, you know, people don't realize, you know, you don't have to see books burning in the street for that sort of thing to be happening. You know, when statues get torn down, you know, when, you know, you see it with YouTube's, you know, they went through and they actually deleted all kinds of videos about the Nazi party. when people go and watch these videos, they don't like, oh, let me learn about Nazism and let me try to become a Nazi. It's one of those, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. So it's very scary when a corporation like YouTube can just go through and mass delete, all these videos. And it wasn't just that topic, lots of topics, conspiracy topics, and even some mainstream topics. So it's the same thing. It's just, it looks different now. So people need to be aware of that.
Yeah, it is interesting, all the censoring that's going on right now, and it's like, what exactly are you trying to cover up? But there seems to be a lot of that right now. It's like it's intensified.
Yeah, but that is an excellent analogy. I've never even thought of it that way. That censoring really is the same thing as the Nazis burning those books. I mean, that was them censoring the people from learning this information. And I mean, sadly, even today, I said when we were leaving the theater, I said it was like what was going on in Portland just a few days ago when they were burning Bibles in the streets. But it's like you said, Brad, it can be through censorship, through pretty much just stopping history, which I don't get, because why do you not want the remembrance of what was? Because like you said, I mean, I know there's some crazy people that probably like Nazis, but the vast majority of people
are going to be appalled.
Yes.
Like
they're fascinating because they're so evil, but it's the same way we're obsessed with watching serial killers. It's not because we're going to be a serial killer. It's because it's fascinating. It's interesting to learn what makes them tick that way.
Yeah.
Why were they that way? And I think that's what it is when people, even in school, I always found World War II, because of the Nazis and the concentration camps and everything that went on, so fascinating and heartbreaking. I mean, heart-wrenching.
I mean, Schindler's List was one of my 90s movies recommendations, not because it's a fun watch. I said on that, I cried for 30 minutes after the movie was over, but because I think it's important to know history and know what did happen. And, God forbid anything like that ever happen again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's a very Orwellian theme. It's a very 1984 sort of theme where he who controls the past controls the future. So, when you erase history or alter history, then you can, control what people know in the present, and then you can, navigate the future. So that's what they're doing. In this case, whether it was the Nazis or what happens today, it's the same thing. So yeah, you're going to repeat the history if you don't know it. If you don't know how the Nazis came to power, it wasn't very hard for them they had some tough economic times. Yeah. We have tough economic times now. They had very nationalistic, ideas at that time. It's not hard. You have candidates that are very, I'll leave all names out, but very nationalistic. And then you convince everybody that somebody is the enemy and is the cause of all your problems. And before you know it, you can get away with whatever, Exactly. And so if you don't learn and understand that, it will inevitably happen again.
Yeah, definitely. And before we move on, Brad, do you know anything of, because if I recall right, Hitler himself was pretty interested in finding artifacts, wasn't he? Like spiritual artifacts?
Oh, he was. Yeah. I mean, there was, they found, journals from him and from those in his inner circle while they were doing, mass genocide in Germany, and while the war was going on. He was sending people to different parts of the world in order to find things. Anything, the Nazis were looking for anything to give them an edge. So while they were looking for a technological edge, and they found a technological edge with their weaponry and their planes and tanks, they were also looking for any other edge that they can get, which included the occult side of the house. And so he had, sent people in different places to look for these items. And they even raided, he wanted to build the biggest art collection in the world because he wanted to have the premier museum to be in Berlin when the war was over. and they were literally going around and just stealing. Obviously, a lot came from Jewish hands. They were stealing priceless art and other artifacts, and they were going to put them all in this museum. So yeah, he was highly interested in this.
Well, and that's another aspect, the Nazi aspect that kind of makes these movies feel timeless. And that is the one thing that, as much as I love Temple of Doom, I don't enjoy the villain as much, because let's just face it, it's fun when you're going up against Nazis and the hero is beating the Nazis. It makes it a little more fun. It really does, because we all enjoy watching them lose.
You don't
We
like
do.
Indiana. You don't like seeing Indiana Jones fight the Thuggies? Come on.
Well, that's good too, I guess.
And I was gonna say, Brad, that is interesting. About I actually somehow had never heard that about the tie between the occult and Hitler, and that makes perfect sense. Just because obviously something took over, like spiritual, or not in a good way. I'm saying evil powers and things like that. So that makes sense that he would have a interest in that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. He was a sick man.
He was a sick man.
My only issue with the Nazis is now that term is used so loosely and so arbitrarily. And then Indiana Jones was actually used, a couple of years back to punch a Nazi. And just everybody's, if you don't like somebody, then they're a Nazi. And
it's like another term that's very popular today.
Yeah, and what's scary about that, you see that even say with the talk about racism. If you call everyone racist, then who's actually racist? It loses its meaning, and it's the same thing with Nazis. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world, say with China and things that really similar to what went on in Nazi Germany, but we abuse that word so much, it loses its meaning. And if you compare something to the Nazis now, it's kind of overlooked because we've compared everything to the Nazis, it feels like. So that's a good point.
Yeah, it's a scapegoat term now.
It is, totally. Well, I will say, Ro, you didn't get to pick your favorite artifact.
Getting to the Last Crusade, I think the Cross of Coronado, the artifact that he found when he was River Phoenix.
Yes.
And later on, he found when he was an adult. It's something that belongs in a museum. I think it really plays to Indiana Jones' strength and his honor of keeping something as as prized as this cross, this artifact, in a place to keep it in a museum, to keep it accessible to people so they can study it and learn from it. Like Brad was saying, you got to learn from the past so you don't repeat it. But I like that they did that. I like how we saw Indy, take it from that other guy as a kid, and it got taken away from him. And later on in life, when he, found out where it was, he was after it again. It just it strengthens the resolve of Indiana Jones as a character, and it also tells you a little bit about his integrity as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is a awesome thing that he finds.
And to see it come full circle.
Yeah. I would have to say it's hard. I mean, the Ark of the Covenant is so fascinating that he finds in the first one. But I probably almost have to go with Brad and the Holy Grail, because I definitely enjoyed that scene overall better, the whole scene itself better. And it does just have such an it's a very special moment, like that moment in the movie. So I probably have to go with that. Natalie, what about you?
I was going to say, I agree that picking the least decorative cup, if you know Jesus, like, and I think we all laugh, as horrifying as that scene was as a kid. He chose poorly.
Yeah, Nerd Herder has it up there.
Michelle and I laughed out loud in the theater. People were
like, what an epic line now. He chose poorly.
Yeah. That is the cup of a carpenter.
Yes.
And that old dude, bless his
interesting
heart.
too, because there's that allegory. Obviously the Jesus Christ and his father, and you've got Indiana Jones and his father. So there's that duality there that George and Stephen really play with, and I think that's one of the reasons it makes it work so well on a deeper level.
Yes,
Definitely.
and that he's able to save his father because of what he finds.
Right.
Yeah, everything about that scene just is awesome. But so kind of moving in. Do you guys have a favorite? I know I have my answer to this. Do you guys have a favorite opening to any of these four movies?
I want to go back to the original opening. I think it's, before you really got to know Indiana Jones, you're seeing this little search in the jungle. You don't know who these guys are, and when he's introduced, just coming out of the shadow into that light, into that shot, and you see Harrison Ford for the first time. You see Indiana Jones. I don't think for me, I don't think anything tops that. It's great, and obviously the movies have some really great openings. You've got the Anything Goes with Kate Capshaw, and then in the nightclub in Shanghai. That's fantastic, but I don't think anything is going to beat, for me anyways, the opening of that original film.
I'm same. I'm with you, Ro. To me, the opening of Raiders is just it's unmatched. It's just that's an incredible opening. The whole scene, awesome.
Quick little
Brad, what about
trivia.
you?
Quick little trivia about the Anything Goes dancing girls. Do you guys know who was one of the dancing girls? She is now very high up in the echelon of Lucasfilm management.
Was it Kathleen Kennedy?
Yeah, she was one of the
Oh,
dancing
Oh my
girls.
gosh, I had no idea.
that's pretty funny. I've
Yeah.
never noticed. Now I'm gonna have to like Google this.
Yeah.
But she was on as a producer for these too, though. So was she dual was dual hat there as a producer slash dancer in a nightclub? That's kind of a weird
She
dual
felt
hat to
like
wear.
dancing that day.
Yeah,
They
Yeah,
needed an extra, and they're like Kathleen, jump in there.
jump in there. Yeah,
yeah.
and she was
But
married to Frank Marshall at the
yeah,
Yes.
time. So yeah,
that'll get you into Hollywood right there. No Frank Marshall
It's
connection.
all about who you know.
It
That's
is.
right, especially in that business. But
Yes.
I hate to. I don't really hate, but I'm going to go back to the Last Crusade, and Roe already mentioned it. But seeing River Phoenix as young Indiana Jones, and there's actually a lot of backstory provided in those scenes as far as the snakes go, his hatred or phobia for snakes, the whip, and then of course the
little mark on
hat.
his chin.
Yeah, they basically um, they paid homage to just about everything they could in those flashback scenes. But just seeing him being so excited about this stuff, as a teenager or however old he was supposed to be, and of course his tries to show it to his dad. His dad's completely dismissive. But that integrity that Roe talked about it belonging in a museum. But and of course it's River Phoenix, so unfortunately we lost River too
Yeah.
early. But he did great in that a little bit, and I think that's how we got the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles was out of those. And I was just reading as far as some trivia. That was the very last scene uh, that they recorded
Okay.
was those opening scenes.
Yeah. Natalie, what is your favorite opening? Do you have one?
I'm gonna agree with Brad. I really liked. Well, first of all, River Phoenix was a cutie, and it is very sad we lost him so early. I think he was a big talent, or on his way to probably do great things. And I think he did an excellent job at portraying young Indiana Jones. And just to see, like he said, kind of you get so many pieces just in that opening scene of his backstory and kind of how he gets some of those things. And actually, the man that they use that first has the cross, I actually thought, like, I was confused, like watching it again. I'm like, is that Indiana Jones? They almost had a look-alike for him. Like it looked like Harrison Ford later on when you first see him, and then for him to put the hat on his head as he leaves. And he's like, I'll get it back from you or whatever, and then flash forward. I just thought that was a great opening.
Ellie, I don't know if anyone else was confused and thought that was Indy.
This one always true. No, No, just for a second when he had his hat down, because it was like
okay,
literally
when
the
he-
outfit. I'm not saying when
Definitely.
he put his face up.
Oh, okay, right when it starts? Or,
yeah,
okay.
like when he's just like
Yeah.
looking down.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he's got the
Because it
leather
was like literally
jacket.
the same attire.
He's got the hat. He's he looks, but you know, River Phoenix has that strong eyebrow ridge, very similar to Harrison Ford. So as Harrison Ford, but they did a really good connection. What did you guys watch the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles when it was on TV?
I actually
No,
have
I
not.
haven't.
Yeah.
They're really fascinating. The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles was a kind of a testing ground. At the time, George Lucas wanted to create Star Wars on TV, but obviously without the same budget as a film. But he wanted to keep the same type of special effects, the same type of grandiose, filmmaking style that people are used to in the films. But obviously, he couldn't spend the money that he did on the movies to do Star Wars on TV. So back then, they started doing the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and the special effects in that were kind of a testing ground for Industrial Light and Magic to be able to see if they could do movie-like special effects for the small screen. And
Oh,
we
cool.
owe a lot of debt to that show. Now, obviously, that we do have Star Wars on TV in The Mandalorian for Disney Plus. So kudos again. We can never understate the importance and I guess the work that ILM and George Lucas has done for the film community to begin with. So
Yes.
Yeah.
hip
Yeah,
hip hooray!
that's cool. Well, it looks like we've lost Brad
I was
for
gonna
the
say,
meantime.
where did
I
Brad
think he must
go?
have had internet connection issues, but we can move on. The kind of last question I had is, do you have? I feel like I know the answer to yours already, Ro. Do you have a favorite of the leading ladies? There's three different leading ladies.
Yeah, I think the original. I think Karen Allen for me is tops. Again, just watching her interact. She's such a strong character. A lot of times she reminds me of Leia. But when we first meet her, when she's drinking those big guys under the table, she's really lighting up that cigarette when what's his name comes in and starts asking for the artifact. Just her snark when the Nazi guy, I can't remember his name, says, you were visited by Dr. Jones and he was asking for an artifact, and she just lights up a cigarette and says, must have slipped his mind. Just these little snarky lines in her character I really love. And then obviously seeing her in the Crystal Skull was an amazing treat for me because I love her in the first movie, and she's back in the same character. You can, like I said earlier, she just revels in it. She enjoys it. So yes, Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood, and obviously because there's a Chicago connection, obviously because Indiana Jones, I think, studied at the University of Chicago. There's a street in Chicago called Ravenswood. My production office used to be there. And it's just, there's a lot of like little connections personally for me that I enjoy watching Marion Ravenwood interact with Indiana Jones.
Yeah, she's excellent.
Yes.
Brad, we are discussing our favorite leading lady. Do you have a favorite leading lady out of these three women?
Well, luckily, Ro was pretty much speaking for me while I was away. I actually have a World War II computer that I'm using right now, and that's why I left for a minute there. But it's been holding up for about 80 years now.
You had to crank it up a
Yeah,
little bit more.
yeah. I had to set the kids. They had to do the bicycle. Anyway, no, it's obviously Marion. The depth of her character is amazing, and it's just so fun to see them working together. So luckily, I'm sure for once, I agree with everything that Rose said in my absence on this one.
Well, I have a complex answer. And well, I have something that I love. I think all three of these women were awesome picks in these movies. And I would say that Marion is like, she is the most well-rounded, truly developed character that you're very happy and could see why he would end up with her. Like they seem like they belong together the most. And then I will have to say that Willie is the most hysterical. Like she is what makes Temple of Doom so fun. Like she's hysterical. Like the scene in the jungle where she's going around screaming at everything. One, I understand. I would feel the same way. But she's just so funny throughout the movie. So she's the funniest of them. And then Elsa in the third one, Natalie and I were discussing. I mean, she's just like a timeless beauty. So you have this beautiful woman who's very complex because she's the most complex of them.
Because she's not all bad.
She's not. You even see her crying as they're burning the books in Berlin. And she genuinely likes Indiana and likes his dad. And his dad. And, but yet, at the end, that lust and that desire to get that literally cost her life. And she's
a moral of the story.
Yes, and she's willing to go with the Nazis because she just so desperately wants it. She doesn't care how she gets it. So I think she's the most complex. But I think they all bring something very unique to each female character. I definitely get why you guys go with Miriam. She's overall, I would say, like who he would end up with. You kind of summed it up, Michelle, but to cite by you said base Miriam, overall the best counterpart in Indiana Jones. Kate Capshaw, funniest sound. Number 3, hottest. There we go. That's kind of definitely, I think how it goes, for sure. But, so as we kind of wrap up, why, I think we've already kind of this, but kind of closing, why do you all think these movies, to me, I definitely think they stand the test of time. And do you guys have anything you want to say as to why they stand the test of time?
First of all, I think some people noticed in the chat that your audio, it sounded like a killer droid, and it was very, very warbled and echoey. So...
I heard that on our last show. We need to look into that.
Yeah.
So, and before we leave, as far as timelessness, again, Indiana Jones is one of those, call to adventure stories that is really timeless. And, just who doesn't love a good old-fashioned adventure? Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned, trip around the world to find a hidden treasure? X marks the spot, or does it? So it's something that is embedded in the Indiana Jones films. It's fun, it's adventure, and it can be in any time.
Yeah, and I think something too, in my opinion, that helps it be timeless is the fact that it was set in a time.
Sure.
It going back to what is the 20s and 30s? I mean,
Right.
it going back then, I think helps it age because you're not judging it with like its 80s decor or things like that. So it helps it feel timeless.
Definitely.
And it's such a good mix of history and fantasy. We've talked about it, but all the themes. The costuming was amazing in these movies as well. All the uniforms were on point, and no matter where they were, the costumes were just amazing. The set pieces were amazing. The music was amazing throughout. It's got all the elements, and it's just so fun. So I think I don't know if the stuff that we cringed at when we were younger, I don't know how well those. Everybody's so desensitized these days. I'm not sure if they'd have the same effect. I don't know. But everything else, though, I think it holds up just fine.
Yeah, I agree. Well, do you have any closing thoughts as we finish out this episode? Anything you want to say about Indiana Jones, Brad?
Well, I mean, I don't know what else there is to say. It's I think Temple of Doom was one of the first movies I ever saw in theaters.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, so that was quite a trip. But The Last Crusade, I remember much more clearly seeing that in theaters when I was younger. Um, so those kind of stick with you. Those movies that you see in the theater as a kid, those really stick with you for a long time. And but like you said, going back and watching The Last Crusade right now, it holds up just like when I first saw it. Was that 1989, 88 when that movie came out? Um,
Yes, I
you
think
know,
so.
yeah, every time you see it, it's like you're watching it for the first time, and you pick up on little. It's very much like Star Wars, where you pick up little details each time you watch it, and that's what makes these movies so fun.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, timeless movies. But we will kind of close out. So that is it for this episode of Force of Light Entertainment. And again, a special thanks to Brad and Roe from the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. And we appreciate you all for joining the conversation and encourage you to subscribe and to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our podcast.
Give us a thumbs up if you want to, and special thanks to everybody that came
Yes,
to the live
yes.
chat. You guys
Yeah.
are awesome.
Yeah, thank you to everyone in the live chat. I saw many of you. And Brad, why don't you tell them where they can find you and where they can find the Scarif podcast?
Yeah, see, that's normally Rose's job, but find us on Twitter. Yeah, find us on Twitter at Scarif Podcast. Remember, Scarif only has one F. From there, you can pretty much find
Yes.
us everywhere else, but we are on YouTube, we are on iTunes, and pretty much everywhere else you catch your favorite podcast. You can find the Scarif Scuttlebutt. And of course, don't forget to check out the Red 5 Network at red5network.com, where you can get the Scarif Scuttlebutt and Force of Light Entertainment and all the other good podcasts from Red and Gold Squadrons.
Yes, Ro joined us just in time. Ro, where can they find you? On Twitter or Instagram?
I am on Twitter and Instagram, row_Gazga on Instagram, and I think it's row Gazga on Twitter. Do we have time to play Sentry Mode?
Sure, go for it.
It's hold on a second. First, I know we usually do this on our podcast, but let's play it here. So that is our little introduction to our little Q&A game that we have. We prepared some questions for you, ladies, and this is Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones centric for obvious reasons. But Brad, you want to do the first question? I know I sent those over to you, but Sentry Mode is basically a couple of questions that we usually do on our podcast, but since since you guys had us, I think it would be fun to do a little Q&A for Raiders of the Lost Ark. And anybody in the chat, if you guys want to join as well, go ahead and answer in the chat. But Sentry Mode, part of the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast on Force of Light Entertainment. This will be fun. Brad, go for it.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm glad you guys are on the hook for these questions.
He's muted.
Yeah, I like when it's Star Wars Century Mode. I do not envy you right now, but we'll see how you do. I know how I was able to do.
Me too.
All right. Which not ready for prime time players made a cameo in Temple of Doom?
Oh gosh, can I get like a multiple choice here?
Do I get a lifeline?
Your lifeline, your phone a friend. Yeah, it's all in the chat. Yeah, it's your phone and friend. Your lifelines are all there. If they can't help, then
lifelines in the chat. What?
Yes.
Michael, no,
give us?
Trevor didn't do these, Mike.
Yeah, because I don't know.
So
for those in the chat that may have not heard, which not ready for prime time players made a cameo in Temple of Doom?
And I'm sorry,
Michael,
that should be
Mr. Rez, help
player.
us out.
Yeah,
No,
I think
player
we're all.
singular.
Yeah. So, in other words, somebody from Saturday Night Live appeared in Temple of Doom. Who was it?
Oh,
Remember,
I
they were
still-
called
I
the old
still
gang.
don't
They
know.
were called not ready for primetime players.
did Mr. Rest just get it right? Was
That is
Aykroyd in it?
correct. Dan Aykroyd. He
Wow,
was,
I've never noticed that.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see. Okay, question number 2. What special effects artist was seen holding a Life magazine on an airplane following Indiana Jones in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah, I feel like I'm about to go 0 for 2 or 0 for 3, however many there are. Do we have someone in the chat that has that answer?
So, what special effects artist, and he's from ILM, is seen holding a Life magazine on an airplane that Indiana Jones goes into in Raiders of the Lost Ark? And you can tell that he's like following Indy.
Mr. Rez says that's what hold on, that's what old people answer. Yeah, I think we're stunned on this one too.
It is Dennis Murin, special effects ILM guy.
Yeah, I was never
going to
know that.
Brad, that next question, I think we talked about that, the dance.
Yeah, you jumped the gun on that one. But the next one is, I think, maybe the only one that I knew. Well, I think I know it. Which Star Wars characters were depicted as ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I do know that. C-3PO and R2-D2. Am I right on that?
Correct.
Okay, yes, yep. I got that one.
I didn't even know that.
And I got one. This one should be easy too, but maybe it's not because they really don't focus on it. But it's a quick shot. Which Jedi Master seemingly owned a nightclub in Shanghai in the Temple of Doom?
Oh gosh,
yeah, it's still
Yoda.
Hard.
Is it?
No.
Is their name on something or something?
Yeah. So when at the end of the chase sequence in Temple of Doom, when they jump out of the window and they fall to that waiting cab where Short Round is, there's a wide shot, and the name of the club that they fall out of is called Club Obi-Wan.
Is it really?
Wow.
I've never noticed that. Oh my gosh.
Mr. Rez again.
Well, yeah, Mr. Rez kills it in the chat.
He does. You are the MVP.
Brad, last question. Go for it.
I think I might know this one too. If it's the obvious answer, I think I might know this one. But what was the wing serial number of the airplane that was waiting for Indy at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark?
My Lord, I don't know.
It's plain as day when he's running. You got the natives chasing him. Blowing the darts, and the guy is like fishing, and he's like, he's looking around, and then you can totally see the serial number of the wing of the airplane. Any takers? Michael,
I wish
a good
I had
guess.
a photographic memory.
Yeah, I don't know. So unless Mr. Rez knows.
I'm with Michael on this one. It's got to be 1138, is it not?
That's a good guess, but it's OB-CPO.
Well, I definitely was not going to remember.
You guys gotta go
Yeah.
back and
No.
check. And obviously there's a lot of little tidbits there. You guys obviously know that Indiana was the name of George Lucas's dog growing up. There is a Empire Strikes Back actor in Last Crusade.
It was General Veers.
Guy. Yeah, General Veers also played Donovan. And you can hear a little bit of the Imperial March when Indiana Jones walks into his office, when they see that plaque, the rock that was broken, and then he did like the little paper relief, so you can hear a little bit of that. This is like a bonus question for you guys. Which Indiana Jones movie does Indy say, "I have a bad feeling about this"?
He does say that in one, because I noticed that, but I can't remember which one it is.
My gosh.
I don't think it was the third one, the one we saw most recently.
Brad,
I'm going to say number 2.
Is it number 2?
Given the timing of it, I would go with Temple of Doom.
Yeah. We're going with Temple of Doom.
Anybody in the chat? Mr. Rez?
Oh, is that obviously wrong? Okay.
That is incorrect. So
I'm going to have to go with Raiders then.
No,
it better not be Crystal. Yeah, it better not be Crystal Skull. Come on, man. We're talking about the trilogy here.
I've only seen that twice, So that's why I don't know that.
Right. It's been a long time for me.
No excuses, no excuses. And one last tidbit: when Indiana Jones, at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he's bombarded with all his students and they're trying to get his attention, and he says,
Yeah.
"If it's truth you're interested in, Dr. Tyree's philosophy class is right down the hall." That is reference to Harrison Ford's actual philosophy teacher in college, Dr. William Tyree, college in Wisconsin. So a little tidbit there, a
Little shout out from
little
Harrison.
shout out there to his college days. But thank you very much, ladies, for playing.
Even though we played,
Thank you.
even though we chose poorly.
We did. Fortunately, the life's not being sucked out of us over it.
Well, yeah,
Awesome.
thank you too. Thank you for
Yes.
coming, both Brad and Ro, and every one of our listeners. If you've not checked out the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast, we really encourage you. They're everywhere podcasts are, and they are on YouTube. Also, check out the red5network.com for all the different podcasts associated with Red 5. And for us, you can find us. We'll have a new episode this coming Sunday. We actually have some special guests that will reveal who that is a little later. And we appreciate you all again for joining this episode. And you can find us at Force of Light Entertainment on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm Michelle34 Smith on each. Natalie.
I'm Natalie R. Grace on Twitter and Nat Loves Bella07 on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in. And we will talk some more movies next time. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
All right. We just finished the podcast. Anyone in the chat? Everyone good on the chat before we turn the chat off? Thank you, Mr. Rez, for for bailing us out in the chat.
Yes.
We appreciate that. And thank you, Michael, for being in the chat, and everyone who joined us in the chat
I
tonight.
saw Alberto up there earlier.
Yes,
Hello
Radio
to him.
Rebellion. And we had Nerd Herder was in there. And Bob was in there. We had a lot. So thank you all for being in the chat. And our Brad and Ro, anything you want to say before we sign off the broadcast?
And that's the Scuttlebutt.
That's it, guys. Good night.